We are talking about human beings, and associate with the title. But keep in mind that the monetary system also allows here the development of many theories about such a topic, based on nothing, and, in addition to that, it doesn't educate people on such an important subject, even the most important. If you will seek an answer to this question on the internet, you will come across all sorts of theories and ideas about life after death, but sadly, all are just ideas, and here the monetary system makes a big mistake, because it isn't focusing on this important topic. In the first 10 Google searches, are only 2 scientific answers, the rest are religious and spiritual sites. And these scientific sites are on 4 and 5 position, and one of them requires a subscription for letting you read the article. And on the following pages, you will find even more sites that offer illusory, spiritual, and religious answers. Look, the pure truth about death, the truth discovered by science, until now. From roasted chicken, fried potatoes, Coca-Cola and food from McDonald's, everything that you eat transforms your body. That, plus the oxygen you breathe.
In digestion, food is changed by the organs into a soluble form to be absorbed by the body. Food in the mouth is mixed with saliva. Saliva begins to dissolve the food as the teeth grind and cut it. Food is forced back into the throat, pharynx, by the tongue. Food in the pharynx stimulates the swallowing reflex. The larynx is pulled upward to meet the epiglottis and seal off the trachea. Food goes from the pharynx to the esophagus. Food moves down the esophagus by peristalsis. The peristaltic wave reaches the esophageal sphincter and food enters the stomach. The unique muscular structure of the stomach breaks up the food into small pieces called chyme. Chyme exits through the pyloric sphincter into the duodenum of the small intestine. The major portion of absorption and digestion occurs in the small intestine. The mucosa secrete enzymes that supplement the digestive enzymes of the pancreas and liver. This completes the chemical process of digestion. The walls are covered with villi where nutrient absorption takes place. The structure of each villus contains a capillary and lacteal to pick up the digested nutrients. The nutrients are now transported by the blood to all the cells of the body. The undigested food reaches the ileocecal valve and enters the large intestine or colon. The colon absorbs water, manufactures vitamins, produces mucus, and forms and expels feces. Mass peristalsis pushes the feces into the rectum, which stimulates the defecation reflex.
All cells need oxygen. It is the essential fuel which is necessary to enable cells to stay alive and to carry out their various activities. Bringing oxygen to the cells requires the uptake of oxygen from the air in the lungs, its transportation in the blood, and its delivery to cells all over the body. The first step is the taking up of oxygen by blood flowing through fine capillaries in the walls of the lungs' air sacs, or alveoli. The oxygen molecules change from their state as a gas freely circulating in the air, dissolving into a solution in the plasma within the capillaries of the alveoli. Once in the solution of the blood, 98% of this dissolved oxygen is taken up by passing red cells, leaving just 2% remaining in the physical solution unattached. Red cells are particularly well suited to transporting oxygen because they contain a special oxygen-binding protein known as hemoglobin. Each molecule of hemoglobin itself contains 4 molecules of heme, an iron-containing pigment, which binds oxygen loosely and reversibly. Hemoglobin that is fully saturated with oxygen is bright red and is called oxyhemoglobin. On the other hand, hemoglobin that is not saturated with oxygen is purplish blue in color and is called deoxyhemoglobin. It is heme which makes it possible for the red cells to pick up oxygen dissolved in the blood, transport it combined with hemoglobin, and release it back into the blood as oxygen in solution, ready for delivery to the various cells of the body. Hemoglobin gives up its oxygen as red cells travel through capillaries in tissues where there is a low content or partial pressure of oxygen. The partial pressure of oxygen represents the level of dissolved oxygen in plasma. As oxygen is released and again is carried in solution, the partial pressure of oxygen in the capillaries becomes greater than the partial pressure of oxygen in the surrounding tissues. This causes oxygen to move out of the capillaries into the tissues and to finally reach the cells. This graph, the oxygen dissociation curve of hemoglobin, shows why hemoglobin is particularly suited to its role in transporting oxygen. The oxygen dissociation curve demonstrates the relationship between the oxygen carried in combination with hemoglobin, the O2 saturation, and the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial blood. The sharp upstroke and the flat plateau illustrate how oxygen is released to the tissues over a wide range of conditions. Its shape means that although the partial pressure of oxygen in the blood returning from the lungs and being pumped out by the arteries may be reduced to only 50% of the normal value, say due to lung disease or high altitude, hemoglobin will still be 85% saturated with oxygen.
The same happens with the fetus that breathes and feeds through his mother. Now, to better understand, take this child and put him into a glass box, and give him food and oxygen until the age of 18. You'll notice how he is transforming miraculously. Basically, almost everything that you gave him is transforming into his body. This is how he looked before. This is how he will look after 18 years. This is what happens when you grow. Practically you are a transformation. But what happens when you die? Your perception about your own death cannot be verified because your brain will die, so we will focus on the observer, the scientific man, and what he's observing is decomposition. Worms will gain weight, the plants will grow, your body will turn into other elements of nature. That's the reality. Think about a man eaten by lions. What happens with his body? The same with a chicken eaten by you. It's just like any food. The human body will go into the structure and the development of lions. In fact, this form, the human being, dies, because everything is metamorphosing. Let's say that after death you will pass into another state, like energy for example. But for that theory to be true, that form of existence must be conscious by the human being. I mean, this form of energy to know that it was a human being. Otherwise, it is the nature transformation of which we spoke earlier. You perceive the world through the five senses. Another form of existence of you should perceive the world in the same way. It has to be conscious of the first form to be considered a continuation of the same being. Another idea is that of the soul. Let's highlight a few realities to see if this theory finds its place in reality. You are born without hands and legs, blind, and you are a faithful man who believes that after death the soul will rise to heaven. You got a problem with your heart, and it's being replaced with an artificial one.
The sound you hear is the total artificial heart. Both ventricles were removed along with 4 valves. Connector tubes were sewn in, and it pumps blood just like a human heart.
Still, you are aware of yourself like before. Nothing changed from that point of view. You have a problem with your blood and is replaced with artificial blood. That, plus your kidneys are being replaced too.